What's going on, guys? Jacob Ober here, coming to you with another video today. In this one, we're going to be talking a little bit about the Packers' defensive situation, in particular, Mike Pettine, and whether or not it is time for the Packers to move on from him. Now, this season, the Packers' defense, to me, has been largely unimpressive. Last season, they really seemed to take a step forward after the previous year, which was a bit of a disappointment for the first year of Pettine's defense. But, I think a lot of people, including myself, are willing to give him, another year with a new head coach and all that to try and figure things out. And the defense as a whole, not of course counting the NFC Championship, we won't really talk about that from last year, but as a whole, I think the defense was a lot better last season. I mean, they finished top 10 points allowed, which in my opinion is the biggest and the best stat to judge a defense by. You always want to, in my opinion, judge a defense by how many points it gives up, because that's obviously the goal of the defense, to limit the amount of points that you give up. And they did really good in that area, and they did a lot of things well. They created turnovers, they got pressure on the quarterback. They weren't great against stopping the run, but they did a lot of other things well, and that seemed to make up for it for the most part, except for the NFC Championship game, of course. But this season, they really seemed to take a bit of a step back. They're only 20th in points allowed this season, and it has been really kind of disappointing to see. I mean, the Packers really, if you think about it, aren't doing anything good offensively, or defensively, I should say. Like, what are they doing good? They haven't created turnovers this year. They haven't gotten pressure on the quarterback this year. They haven't stopped the run very well this year. There's just not a lot to write home about for this defense right now. I mean, and the fact, is the Packers have a lot of really great personnel on the team, too. Like, they have studs. They have Jair Alexander, who could very well be an All-Pro this year. Same with Zadarius Smith. They've got Kenny Clark in the middle. He could also be an All-Pro. I mean, those guys are like the anchors of the defense. And those are three legitimate All-Pro candidates you have, and the defense has just not been impressive. They have a lot of really good talent, though. You look at Preston Smith. You look at Kevin King, too. You look at Savage and Amos. And, of course, Amos really hasn't been that impressive this year, unfortunately. But still, there's a lot of pieces to work with on this defense. And I think the hope from a lot of people is that this defense is going to take another step forward this year and become maybe potentially a top 5 unit. But instead they've taken a step backwards, and it's been really, really disappointing to watch. And even though the Packers are only 4-1, which is obviously a very good record and among the top teams in the NFC, the defense has always kind of been, the Achilles heel for the Packers, especially in the postseason. And when you see the team, or the defense, I should say, take a step back like they have, I mean, it's just really, really disappointing to see, So, that begs the question, what do the Packers do with their defensive coordinator, Mike Pettine? How much of this is his to blame, I really hated the game that Mike Pettine called on Sunday. I mean, I'm not going to totally blame the defense for that game. I mean, they really, you can wipe 14 of those points off the board. They really, in reality, only gave up 24 points, but they just didn't play good. They didn't do anything good in that game. They let the Bucs bleed the clock out late in the game. The Packers obviously offensively couldn't do anything, so it didn't really matter. But especially the game that Mike Pettine called, he's playing soft coverage on third and shorts. He dropped Kenny Clark into coverage at one point. Kenny Clark into coverage, consistently sending three-man rushes, which is one of my least favorite things in sports. Seeing a three-man rush, especially on like a third and, medium or long or something. I hate it. Pressure the quarterback, for God's sake. But there was just nothing really to write home about for the defense. I mean, they didn't really do anything well. They had a few nice 3-and-out stops. I think they started the game with 3-and-out, which is really promising, but they just didn't look good. And I think a lot of it had to do with Mike Pettine. And there was one interesting stat I saw from Preston Smith this year. Preston Smith has gotten off to a notoriously poor start. He has not done well at all. And I think a big reason for that is because Mike Pettine continues to want to drop him off in coverage, even though he's one of your best pass rushers. And I'll admit, he hasn't been good as a pass rusher this year, but why are we dropping off a pass rusher into coverage? I mean, I looked at the stat. I don't remember how many times it was, but I saw that he has already equaled the amount of times he's dropped into coverage from last year this year. We're only 6 games into the season. I mean, that's just indefensible for me. I don't know why you're not trying to use your best pass rusher, or one of your best pass rushers, I should say, even if they're playing really, really well, or really, really poorly. I mean, you have to at least give them a shot, It just doesn't seem it seems very counterintuitive to try and drop them off into coverage. And the same goes for that Kenny Clark play. Why are you trying to drop Kenny Clark off into coverage? They were literally having Kenny Clark sit in a zone coverage on that one play I saw. I don't understand what was going on there. But really, to me, this team, is, it hasn't been like the defense has just been god-awful or anything. They haven't been horrible beyond belief. I mean, the Packers are still 4-1, and they still, for the most part, have done a decent enough job. But, I mean, there's just nothing to write home about it, though. There's just nothing that I see from them that's particularly good, I mean, maybe the most impactful play from them this season was that Zadarius Smith fumble recovery against the Saints. That's been about it. I'm pretty sure they only have 2 forced turnovers all year. It was the interception from Jair in week 1, or no, actually 3, because they had the Chandon Sullivan pick 6. I think it was only 3. I might be wrong, but still, it's been impressive the lack of turnovers they forced. They haven't gotten pressure on the quarterback, and they can't stop the run again. So, I don't really know what to say about this defense. Is it Mike Pettine's fault? I don't know. I mean, if I'm being totally honest, though, I will probably say I still want to give Mike Pettine the rest of the season. I understand that things are really frustrating right now for Packers fans with how the defense has performed. And, Aaron Rodgers is certainly not getting any younger. You want to get him as close enough to an elite defense as possible before his time in Green Bay is up, which could be sooner rather than later. And, you don't want to waste another year. But it's also hard for me to see, the Packers bringing in somebody else in the middle of the season and just completely revamping their defense and becoming an elite unit, There are some potential candidates for the offseason that I might want the Packers to explore if the defense doesn't get better and they ultimately fall short in the postseason again. One of those candidates especially, Wade Phillips. I would love to see Wade Phillips as the Packers defensive coordinator next year if things continue to go poorly and the Packers underperform in the postseason again. But, it's certainly something that you just have to think about. You have to keep your eye on. I know that there are a lot of Packer fans out there who want Mike Pettine fired right now. I don't particularly think that's the answer right now, but, it's certainly something to think about. He's had 3 years now, and the defense went from pretty good last year to now very unimpressive, especially with the amount of talent that they have. It's been disappointing, and I think a lot of the blame does fall on Pettine's shoulders. He has to figure out a way to get this group to play well and play a lot better than they have, or else it might be another early exit in the postseason. Or not early exit, but, another disappointing exit, I should say, on the shoulders of the defense. So, anyways, guys, though, that's all I really have to say in this video. I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comment section down below. Do you think we should fire Mike Pettine during this season? Do you think we should let him try and figure it out and give him the rest of the season, and maybe if it doesn't go well, find someone else? Let me hear your thoughts in the comment section below. Be sure to leave a like and subscribe, guys, and I'll see you guys next time. Go Pack, go.